Hey everybody, and welcome back to Hospitality Marketing. Today I have Ethan Lamb with me, and he's going to help me talk about the importance of location in hospitality marketing. How are you today, Ethan?
Good, good. How are you doing?
Good. It's a pretty fancy setup you got there.
Yeah, I'm actually in my company's storage closet, or one of them. It's one of the only quiet spots in our office.
Okay, so we'll try to be quick so you can get back to work today. Um, this chapter 10 really kind of chapter 9 and chapter 10 really kind of work together as a set because we're still talking about the P of the four P's in marketing. We're about place. And so in the last one, we talked about distribution. Now we're going to talk about location. And these are both aspects of that idea of place. And the location is even more about like the physical place. Whereas the last chapter of distribution was talking about how we can get things like, Amazon is located on your computer. That's its place. There is a warehouse somewhere, but for the consumer, that's where it's at. It's wherever you access it electronically. But this is different because now this chapter location, we're going to be talking about the physical location of places. Uh, you know, where's where's McDonald's? McDonald's is the drive-through where you get your food. That's where McDonald's is. So we're going to talk about the importance of location and some strategies and things on how we pick where we're going to put uh, our restaurant or our hotel. So first, we're going to talk about like the location strategies, and one of the strategies that is mentioned in the book is this idea of clustering. And clustering sort of it makes sense in a way, and then it's counterintuitive in a way. So did you know what clustering is, Ethan?
Yeah, so it's like in a geographic area, it'll put like, say, it'll group companies together, but it kind of like with it going back and forth with each other, it kind of causes more of a competition, I would say.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna put, we're gonna make uh, this city, we're gonna move in and we're gonna put six Jimmy John's in there. And so like Jimmy John's is gonna have a big presence and everybody's gonna be really aware of Jimmy John's. We're gonna run all the other sandwich shops out of town. And so that's what clustering is like putting several places in one area. But the problem we have is cannibalization, which is now that we've done that, each Jimmy John's is getting less sales because there's another Jimmy John's across the street, or there's one down, around the corner from it. And so you're stealing from your same brand. Um, and that's not cool in business. I wonder about this with the Holiday Inn and the Holiday Inn Express. I don't know if people know if for the consumer there's enough difference between a Holiday Inn and a Holiday Inn Express. You have two of them sitting next to each other. I feel that they're probably each just getting half as much business as they would if you had one. Um, I don't know. Maybe, do you know the difference between a Holiday Inn and a Holiday Inn Express, Ethan?
Um, not completely. I know.
Yeah,
I would assume that one's fast. I mean, I guess you stay shorter time periods.
I don't know. And you're a hospitality student, you would be in the know. And and imagine for the average consumer who's just become familiar with this through whatever branding or commercials they've seen, it doesn't make it's not clear. So when we introduce a new product, we want to be real careful about not stealing our existing customer base. So just this week, Coca-Cola announced that they're going to stop making Tab Cola. Do you know what Tab is, Ethan?
Never heard of Tab Cola.
Never heard of Tab? Tab is Coca-Cola's first diet drink. It was the first diet cola they made. It came out in the 60s, and that's how long it's been around. But, what do you just sticking to Coca-Cola brands, does Coca-Cola have any other successful diet brands?
I mean, they're Diet Coke.
Yeah. Coke
And
Zero,
I
Diet
guess,
Coke.
yeah.
And there's Coke, there's the cherry Coke, cherry Diet Coke. There's all these variations. And so essentially what Coke did was they stole all of the business away from their own product in Tab. Because for a long time, Tab was basically it for diet drink. So in a way, like if you're the manager of Tab at Coca-Cola, you're like, whoa, you're cannibalizing from me. You are stealing my business. So for Coca-Cola, if you look at it, if for in a certain way, they haven't made as much money as they could because they had two competing products. So that's one of the issues with cannibalization. Other things we have to think about are like, what kind of location are we going to put in? Am I going to put in a freestanding restaurant, for instance, with a full service, or am I going to do one of these pods, or what are called points of distribution? And these tend to be limited. So think of these as things like you see sometimes in a food court or in a stadium or in an airport. You ever see like a chain, in one of those locations, Ethan?
Oh yeah. Isn't there a Chick-fil-A in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta?
I'm sure there is. Now, if you ever, do they ever have like a simpler menu in these locations that are in?
Oh yeah, it's like you get a sandwich or you get nuggets.
Yeah, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's
And
what
then
these points of
fries.
distribution are, is they have much more restricted menus. And so they concentrate on the high volume, high profit items in these high traffic areas. So, that's a choice. Do I put a Chick-fil-A in, or do I put one in the stadium? That's gonna
Would on the like a pod, would a food, I guess food trucks are, kind of a newer thing.
yeah, food trucks
But would they fit into a pod category, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. And so then there's the idea of co-location, which is where I put two brands that don't compete in the same location. Now, let's see, can you think of an example of that, Ethan? Where two restaurants are put together and they don't compete with each other, but they're put together.
Oh, that's like the KFC and Taco Bell, I guess, because they're a joint, like especially the one in Darien. They serve both out of the same location. I feel like they still compete, but they're two different markets. One's fried chicken and one's, Mexican food. So
yeah, you're exactly right. So the Kentucky Hut, the Kentucky Fried Chicken,
yeah.
Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, that they put them all there because the idea is, well, some people want pizza and some people want fried chicken. And then, like, imagine if you have a family where they're fighting over what they're going to pick. Well, everybody gets what they want, and so they can come in. And so co-location, that's a strategy and we see this. There's what is it? A&W Root Beer and Long John Silver's, Baskin Robbins and Dunkin' Donuts. That they get paired up that way. Then other strategies we could use are either what's called a funnel or a magnet. So the funnel is like, this is a location. This is a high traffic location. And it's one of those things where we're going to put something there because there's so much traffic. There's so many people coming by. They're going to do a lot of sales. So this is like, putting something in an airport. You're just going to have tons of people going by. But even in cities or towns, there are certain intersections, certain corners that if you can get that corner, you're going to do business. It's just everybody has to drive past this point. It's like why we have restaurants at exits on the interstate. There's a lot of traffic. What's that?
The whole exit up there, I think was it 38 up there by like Strike Zone, the bowling alley area.
Yeah.
All those new restaurants that's come just since I've been down here in school. I mean, there's like 8 new restaurants right there in front of Sam's.
Yeah, and it's a high traffic area,
Yeah.
and so that's a good place to put stuff. It's like they're not going there to look for restaurants, but it's a good location. Now, kind of the opposite idea of this, and it is also an important way to do it, is what's called a magnet location. So this could be, you have an operation and you're going to pick somewhere maybe that's cheaper to operate, like a more rural area or kind of out of the way, but your business is so attractive that people are going to drive there to do it. And so I think you see this a lot with businesses like IKEA. You know, like they'll build it, or a Walmart supercenter, they'll build it out in the country, you know, like on the edge of town. There's no business out there. They'll build it, and then that becomes the place where people go. You know, it's a magnet. It draws people in. I'm trying to think of another example where that's happened, where you know, you build out on the edge of town and it pulls the city that way. Kind of. So that's a magnet location. Another thing to think about, and these are tactical issues, so this is more short-term decision making, is that the location decision and the site decision are not the same thing. The location decision is kind of, what city am I going to put it in, or what community, or what type of profile am I looking for? Do I want to be in an upscale neighborhood? Think about, let's see, what's kind of an upscale restaurant?
Around here?
What's that?
Like around here?
Well, I was trying to think of a chain, like not really upscale, but like Starbucks. You know, they're nice, and so they think a lot about where they're going to put them. Where, you know, there are neighborhoods you're not going to see a Starbucks in.
Right.
You know, and so that's kind of a location decision. Now, within that, you have what's called the site decision. So if I decide, you know, I'm going to put my Starbucks out here, I want to be near the interstate, say. So I'm going to put it out there. Now, do I want to be on the right-hand side of the road, on the left-hand side of the road? Do I want to be in the shopping center with Sam's Club? Do I want to be across the street where in the woods where nothing has been built yet? Which one? And this is like, which one is going to be the easiest for people to get into? Or which one is going to have the best line of sight? Because most people are right-handed. We tend to see things faster on the right. So if you think about the way we drive and the way the roads are arranged, that makes sense. But, you know, if something's across the street, that's or across traffic, that can be difficult. Can you think of an example, Ethan? Oh, did I lose you?
No, I had one of my bosses were calling. I had to decline it. Sorry.
Okay. Can you think of an example of a restaurant or a hotel or something that's hard to get into? Like the location, or it's like, you know, I'd go there, I'd go through that drive-through, but I hate trying to get back out in traffic.
The Starbucks on the island's actually pretty hard getting in and out of it, just because it's so busy right there close to the roundabout at, you know, the convenient times that you would go normally.
You're exactly right. So that the Starbucks here on the island, the Chick-fil-A there on the island, which is even
that one's
horrible. Roundabout. You tried to get it in and out of that Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, there's no doing it, especially during any type of rush hour.
Yeah, so there are times when I'm like, okay, so is that a good site or not? It's like, it's a good site because there's a lot of traffic and it's in the middle of everything. But I'll tell you personally, there are times it's like, I'm not going to go there. You know, it's just not worth the hassle. You know, I'll go over to Jimmy John's or something around the corner and get something because it's not worth the hassle to try and go through the Starbucks parking lot and get back into traffic. And on the same token, across the street, there is a Holiday Inn, or I think it's a Holiday Inn, or is it a Hampton Inn?
Hampton. It's the Hampton, yeah.
That hotel, really difficult to get into. You know, getting into that parking lot is hard. So that's a site decision. In that same shopping center right there by the roundabout in the middle of the St. Simons Island, there used to be an Outback.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever tried, it's like, if depending on which direction you need to go when you pull out, again, that's a place I will avoid just because it's a pain to try and get into traffic.
So you got to cut through parking lots to get out of there.
Yeah, exactly. You have to drive through parking lots to get out. And so these are decisions. It's like, well, I could build there. Is it the best site? Or is it better to build it across the street, or, you know, a little bit down maybe there's not quite as much traffic down the road, but it's a lot easier for people to get in and out of, or you can have a bigger parking lot. Or, you know, you know, is it going to flood when we get high water? That's a decision for some of the places on the island. Well, I could build down near East Beach or over there, but when we get, you know, our storms pretty much annually now, it's going to be flooded. Or am I better being closer to the airport?
Yeah, we get a ton of business here at my office from just the Marshside Grill that used to be the old Spankies.
Yeah,
Every time we get a nor'easter blowing through with a real high tide,
yeah,
it'll flood their parking lot and like go in the edge of their like restaurant, and they'll have
yeah.
to redo some stuff every time. It never fails.
So that's a good example. The Marshside Grill right there on the marsh. What is that? Glen Avenue.
Yes, sir. 17.
Yeah, and so you're making a decision. Okay, it's beautiful on the marshfront property. No, you're not even allowed to build there anymore. So that's a really special site that people like the view. Then on the other hand, it floods every year. So it's like what you've got to you're weighing these two things to make your decision on the site. So we're going to figure out, should I build my restaurant? Is this a good place to do it? Should I move it somewhere else? Things we think about: the trading area. The trading area is an area that's going to contain about 75% of the people who are going to visit the business. So for Jekyll, their trading area is probably the island. If you're the Dairy Queen there, about 70 to 75% of the customers are going to be on the island. You're not going to get too many people in Brunswick. I think I'm going to drive over to Jekyll and go to Dairy Queen. It's just not going to happen. So that's one thing we have to think about: is what's the trading area. So Brunswick's trading area, since we're the biggest city in the county, we're actually going to pull in, from Darien, from the surrounding areas that are a little west of us, a little south of us. So our trading area, if you pick a spot like by the Brunswick Mall, your trading area is actually probably all of Glenn County. It's not just Brunswick, because you're going to pull people from a bigger area. So the next thing we think about: the population and its characteristics. So how many people live here? Just before I logged in with you, Ethan, I was reading an article about the fastest shrinking or fastest dying cities in America. And, so that's the type of thing you consider. So the population, how big is the population? It's not hospitality. I'll give you an example. If you're driving, if I were to tell you to drive west from here, Ethan, and you're going to go through a bunch of little towns, you're going to go through DuPont and just all these little towns as you're heading out. What business, what chain are you likely to see in these little towns that look like they have 8 people that live in them?
You might see a McDonald's.
Yeah, maybe. You're more likely maybe even a Dairy Queen. Dairy Queen seems to go for smaller towns. You're going to see a Family Dollar.
Oh yeah.
And Family Dollar, it's because they target those small towns. That's part of their business plan. Is they don't, because they kind of sell the same things Walmart sell. They sell some of everything, but they don't want to go head to head with Walmart, so they pick smaller towns to do it in. So that's the size of the population. And then other places need big populations. We will never have an IKEA in Brunswick. We're not big enough. It'll never happen.
Yeah.
And then there's the characteristics. Like this is kind of the makeup of the people. There are some, I don't think we will ever get a Mongolian grill around here. I don't think that there's going to be enough, right? At least currently there's, doesn't fit with the profile of our population. But we're going to have lots of barbecue restaurants and lots of fried shrimp restaurants.
Got a ton of those.
Because that fits with the characteristics of the population area. I talked about this a little bit earlier. So like the relation to the roadway. So when I was talking about how hard is it to get into this place? So there are the physical barriers, this is traffic or around here, we have a lot of places that have little creeks and, and marshes. And so there are physical things that prevent where we can build or limit the size and the shape of our locations. And that's just something we have to work around when we're planning where we're going to build our facility. And then there's social barriers, and this is things like maybe I'm not going to put my restaurant in an industrial park, you know. And I can tell you, like, there's a ton of really affordable property in Brunswick down near the sewage treatment plant.
Nobody wants to be there.
Are you gonna put a restaurant there? No, there's no traffic. There's no people. It's just not something you're gonna do. We also avoid, if we have unsafe neighborhoods or places that are run down. Again, you're not gonna build a new hotel in the middle of a really rundown neighborhood or a new restaurant, probably.
There's the new Striplings that's going in behind the Parkers right there on the corner of Glen Avenue and the Causeway. So they fit under like all of these brackets. They couldn't build there originally because it was like too low into the flood zone.
Yeah.
So they got permits to like lift it up. And now they're kind of in that way of, accessibility. You're going to have to turn back on that little side road to go all the way around, or you're going to have to get onto the causeway and come back.
Yeah, it was funny that you mentioned that because I was thinking about that because I drive past it every day. I was thinking, I guess if I ever go in there, I'm going to have to leave out through the back, through that little side road that down behind CVS. That's the only way that I'll ever be able to get where I need to go. And the other thing is, we actually, if you think about it, you don't see restaurants and hotels in affluent neighborhoods.
Right.
You don't, we just don't put them there. Part of it is the affluent neighborhoods don't want the traffic. And so, we also think about issues like distance. How far away are we from a population center? Things like traffic patterns, other kinds of business. And that's another thing we think about. Maybe if we're in a retail district, that's a good place for a lot of restaurants. If I actually know of several places where there are gigantic, really nice hotels built in really remote places because there are things like proving grounds or research centers, and people are having to constantly fly into that area to work. So they build a hotel there to have somewhere for people to stay. And then there's like, how to put this, gravity. So like the mall. Actually, the mall here sucks.
Yeah. There's like two things in there.
Yeah, is there anything in that mall? Let's see, I'm trying to think of something that is a big attraction. Oh, okay. So like like you're going to the Jacksonville airport, and as you get close to the Jacksonville airport, there's a lot of restaurants and things there because there's a lot of traffic there. And it's the airport kind of acts as this, it's like a gravity sink. It's like everything is kind of pulled there. It pulls things into the area. So the gravity model, what we're talking about is how likely is someone to visit this area? The more likely, and giving the IKEA example again, when you build an IKEA, it becomes a gravity center. Like then restaurants start popping up around it because they know people are going to be going there. Now, IKEA is pretty sneaky because one of the things is they realized early on is that people, if they leave the store, they buy less. So you ever been to IKEA, Ethan?
Yeah, it's like a maze.
Yeah, and that's on purpose because you go in one and you have to go through the whole store to get out. So one, you're right, it is like a maze on purpose and it makes you likely to buy more. And the other thing they do that is to keep people in the store is they do an analysis of the neighborhood, and that's how they price their meatballs. They want to always be the cheapest meal in the neighborhood so that people don't leave to eat, because if they leave to eat, they're not going to come back.
Right.
So that's, again,
that's awesome.
What's that?
Oh, so that's kind of that's cool, but
Yes, it
that's
is.
weird that that's like their strategy.
Yeah, and so they're trying to keep you in there. And the other thing we look at is competition. You know, and this is competition goes both ways. So one is like you don't necessarily want to go head to head and fight someone if you don't have to. You know, like if I have an independent coffee shop, I don't necessarily want to build it next door to Starbucks. That's hard. But on the other hand, you'll notice that restaurants and hotels get built where there are other restaurants and hotels. You know, the presence of competition means this is a good site. And so that's why you get clusters of like all the restaurants for one place, or all the hotels are built together. Like all the hotels are built, you know, at the same exit on the interstate. It's because, well, that's where the traffic is. And so the presence of competition kind of tells you, well, that maybe this is a good site.
How's that work as far as the like all these new dual hotels,
What do you mean?
like the Home2 Suites, and is it the Hampton, or well, what's the two that are together up by the interstate now?
I don't know.
It's like a joint hotel. It's a Home2 and something. I want to say it's like a Hampton,
I don't know.
Hampton Garden maybe.
I don't know. I'll have to look into that. I don't know.
I
That's
mean,
a good question.
I know it's owned by the same parent company, but like I feel
Yeah,
like that's still just like you were saying, causes competition that's unnecessary, really.
maybe it's a co-location thing because, like, if it's a suites and a hotel, like the people who stay in suites tend to be business travelers. Are going to be there longer
Mm-hmm.
because they want like a living room. Basically, they want to be able to stretch out more. Whereas a regular hotel maybe is feeling more to families. But I don't know. That's a good question. I'll look into that. So then, so site and location evaluations kind of overlap. So when we're looking at the site evaluation, again, traffic is important. It's both the traffic that is there enough traffic coming by? Are there enough people? And then on the other hand, is it accessible traffic? So like I could build a restaurant right next to the interstate, but nobody can get to it because you have to get off the exit, you know, drive around on some sort of access road and all. And so we have that. We have visibility. Um, can it be observed by other customers? Is it um, somewhere that you can where it stands out, where you can notice it? And is it somewhere again that customers are aware? There are a lot of restaurants. I'm driving and I can't figure out how to get in there. You know, it's like I'm driving past. It's like how, especially if you have 3 or 4 restaurants next to each other and you know, like they'll have a common interest. Like, how on earth do I get over to that restaurant that I want to visit? Um, and so and that's kind of an issue of visibility. Accessibility, like can I reach it? Do I have to do I have to turn across traffic to get into it, or do I need a red light? And so the next slide, I've got a picture that kind of illustrates this. So here are some potential sites. So Ethan, which one do you think is the most visible?
Site A, probably.
Site A, yeah, you can see it from all 4 corners there of getting of access. Now site B is pretty visible, um, but it may but both of them we have issues perhaps with accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on the same side as site A and site B, getting into them and getting out is going to be easy. But if you're coming from across the street, there's a challenge. Now let's look at this strip mall over here. Um, how visible? Like if you're site E, how visible are you?
And they're not going to see you until they get there.
Yeah, unless they're looking like over there, looking at the shopping center trying to find it, they're not going to know you're there. Um, and so the visibility is poor, but the accessibility is probably better because if you look, you have basically 3 streets that you can access from. That all could turn into the shopping center. So getting in and out would be easier. Okay, so things we look at: visibility, accessibility, size. You know, we need enough space for our restaurant and for parking. And that's one of those things, like, and I hate to keep using this as an example, but if we've got the roundabout on St. Simons, Southern Soul, fantastically visible. It's moderately accessible. Sometimes I get caught behind people who are trying to turn across the, after the roundabout to go into the parking lot. It's like, just go up and turn around. Don't stop traffic. So, but the other thing is, until they've recently bought the little building next to them, size, like, there wasn't a lot of parking.
Not at all.
And it was kind of a challenge sometimes. So size for the site, size for expansion, size for parking. You can also deal with, like, how convenient is parking. I went and got my haircut recently, and one of the problems that I had was that it was almost a little strip mall area, and every parking space was for a particular business with the threat of being towed. So the hair salon has one parking space. It's like, okay, this is great and all, but I can't come back here if anyone else is in the parking lot. I'm not going to get towed to get my haircut.
It's not worth the $250.
Yeah, absolutely not. Cost. There are lots of fantastic. What's the name of the place you're talking about there near the end of the causeway?
Striplings.
Striplings. I'm only going to guess that that's a very expensive piece of property, given its
it's got to be.
Given its location right there at the entrance to the causeway. And so to build a business there, you've got to work on a model where you're counting on a lot of traffic and generating a lot of money. Just because that piece of property is going to be expensive. To build a hotel on the beach is going to be expensive, because beachfront property is not cheap. Then we look at things like the land use in the surrounding area. Like, again, that same building there at Striplings, the surrounding area is a super fun cleanup site. So, maybe that's a little bit limiting in what you want to put in the area. Maybe you don't want to build your restaurant right next to the sewage treatment plant, for instance. There are things that can affect your decision. And then the site terrain. If you have a piece of property that's on a slant, you can have a lot of land, you can't build anything on it. What if half your property is wetlands? Building in wetlands around here locally is almost impossible. And so the terrain will determine your site. I have a friend who bought a house in Atlanta, and they weren't very smart about it. And they're like, I got such a great deal on this house. It's got this huge piece of land, and I'm going to, do all this sort of stuff. And they immediately went to work. They were going to, like, build a driveway, and the city came out and said, sorry, this is an easement. You can't build here. Yes, legally it's yours, but we control it.
That's like the is it Hamilton? This right there behind Harris Teeter.
Yeah.
That used to be like didn't it used to be a trash dump or something? And then they capped it off, and, like, they cleaned up every house in there. Is like, it's cheap to buy lots in there, but
yeah,
all of them are, like, structurally failing now.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of places. You build. Not a lot of places where they'll reclaim swampland, and then the land gives way if it's not done properly. So with hotels, it's pretty similar. We do feasibility studies with hotels, and this is like, should I or shouldn't I build a hotel? Yes or no? Is this the right? First thing, look at the site. So can I build a hotel in this space? Is the land solid enough? Is there enough space for parking? All those sorts of things. Then I look at the area from a marketing point of view. And so there are two approaches I can do. One is I can do the build-up approach, or I can look at current demand. And current demand is something we all kind of understand. It's like, Well, how many people are using that type of facility in the area now? How many hotels are there now? That'll give me some idea if there's a need. Or the build-up approach is that I talk to people like the head of the CVB. I talk to local business leaders. I talk to builders and say, hey, do you think we need a hotel in our community? What do you think? And then, because they're on the inside, they understand. We'll do an analysis of let's see, the occupancy rate for the hotels that already exist. If all the local hotels are at 95% on average, we need another hotel because they're full and there are people who are being turned away. And then, just some other things we look at, revenue and expenses. There are areas that it may just be too expensive to build in. Do I want to build a hotel and manage a hotel and run a hotel, and I'm only going to make $10,000 in profit? There are other things I could do to make $10,000. That'd be a lot easier. The last thing about hotel feasibility that I want you to keep in mind is that there's some guesswork in it. That being, experience counts. And so it's as a hotel manager or talking to other hotel managers, or you're in the industry, you are going to have to make the call of whether, you will be able to judge to some extent. I think this is a good idea or a bad idea. And so a lot of it depends on judgment of people who know better. All right, Ethan, like I said, this was a short one, only 9 slides.
That was a fast one.
Yeah. So any questions or anything you want to add?
Not really, no sir.
Okay, that's pretty scary perspective there, looking up at you like that. But thanks for joining me. And I will probably be putting this up in the next couple hours. And that's it. Thank you.
Sweet. Thank you, sir. We'll see you.
All right. Have a good day.